When you love a team, it consumes everything. It's the way it makes the heart beat. Leagues aren't meant to be love languages because everything has a price. And when you slap Canadian in front of something, especially now, there's a bit of a tug. Maybe it's a little emotion, maybe it's a lot of civic duty. But it's all just a business, isn't it? But how do you feel when I say Canadian Football League?
Looking for the home run, Tim White, touchdown, Tiger Cat.
Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Bagleton,
Randy Oliveira, touchdown. The CFL, pretty good.
unbelievable.
This is the 67th CFL season, and the defending Grey Cup champions, flirting with dynasty, will contest with the gauntlet in the East, while the West may be as wide open as it's ever been. And now that it's June, we all know that feeling as the ball sails in the air and everything tiptoes on that high wire between no yards and take it all the way.
Janarian Grant picks it up. He's got a big return going. Block out in front. Pimpleton cuts it back, stays on his feet.
This guy is out of here. Bye-bye, Super Mario.
When every 20 seconds, 12 players scrimmaging on the longest, widest field conjure countless spectacular ways of showcasing the one unbelievable constant, that right here and right now, everything can happen.
Stays alive and he's still going. Are you kidding me? Some magic from Trey Ford.
Across midfield, he's still on his feet. What a run by Nathan Rourke. Still going. Rourke up in the air. It is hauled in. The man of the moment, Tyson Philpott.
It's just a game, but it's the way our hearts beat. For old friends and old rivals, fresh faces and tested contenders, when such a big country of coasts and mountains, cities and prairies, and all colors find their fit back together. This is our communion and our promise that this league is our league, and we'll continue to keep it in our own way, because nothing compares to the Canadian Football League.
This is our, this is our home. This is our, this is our home.
Wonderful job once again by our own Matthew Shinetti. All 9 CFL teams have one common goal, be crowned champions in Winnipeg on November the 16th. But before we get to the 112th Grey Cup, we have 6 months of Canadian football ahead of us, 81 regular season games, and we are ready to kick off a new season. Hello, Canada, and welcome to the CFL on TSN preview show. Kate Burness alongside Enoch Mwamba, Davis Sanchez, and Jim Barker. And look, we are excited for a new season ahead. Fans are excited. Players are excited. Enoch, when you look at what's ahead, what are you looking forward to the most?
Man, I'm excited to see the new faces and the new places. You see Bo Levi Mitchell coming back into the picture as Bo Levi of old, and then Nathan Rourke and Vernon Adams, Trey Ford. There's a lot of new faces and a lot of quarterbacks that want to really put their stamp on this season.
Yeah, a lot of questions to be asked, a lot of new faces, and what I love is there's a lot of pressure on some folks, which makes for exciting television. One thing that won't change is that the summer is here and the summer is CFL.
Well, when you look at the backup quarterbacks in this league, Cody Fajardo, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, Nick Arbuckle, all Grey Cup winning quarterbacks, and those are backups. That tells you the strength of the league. How quarterbacks play dictates the excitement of the games, and that's what I'm excited to watch.
I thought you were going to list all the linemen that you were excited to see this season. We don't have time for that, Jim, but right now let's head over to Dave Naylor, who has one burning question about the Toronto Argonauts.
Can the Toronto Argonauts overcome their off-season losses on defense? It's a formidable challenge. Just look at their depth chart from last November's Grey Cup game victory over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Their entire front four, gone.
Pressure on, tries to get away, can't. Serezna flying his way into that backfield. The pressure coming, Orimolade, he's got him. He's got him again.
Fuller and Orimolade in Calgary, Jake Serezna and Robbie Smith in Edmonton, and Ralph Hawley to the NFL. And on the back end, they've lost the experience of 2 veterans, Royce Metier and Deshaun Amos. This is a team that led the CFL in sacks last season and was top 3 in both tackles for loss and forced fumbles. Now, the Argos have added some veteran reinforcements along that defensive line, and by retaining linebacker Wynton McManus in free agency, Toronto kept the player who has been the foundational playmaker in this era of Argo defense.
They'll start with a screen. This one's picked off. House call. Wynton McManus. Touchdown Argos.
The Argos have made a habit in recent years of filling holes by bringing new talent to the league and then seeing it thrive. The result of that over the past 3 seasons has been 2 Grey Cup wins, sandwiching a year in which they had the league's best regular season record.
For the second time in 3 years, Toronto is the Grey Cup champion.
You look at dynasty. Dynasty is a word for winning championship.
So the challenge is familiar. And adding defensive coaches Jason Shivers and Greg Marshall to the mix should help ease some of the transition into the start of the season.
It is great that the Argonauts could keep Wynton McManus, but my goodness, this defense is just decimated. And Jim, as we said, they have a knack for filling these holes, but is it too much this time around?
They've been the best defensive line for the last 3 or 4 years. Enoch was a great player because he had great players in front of him, and he'd be the first to admit that. They went out and traded Flo Rimolade, arguably the best pass rusher in the league, to get Cam Judge. So now they have Wynton McManus and Cam Judge. But in front of them, they have basically Jordan Williams, who's going into his second year, and then they have 2 players that Corey Mace let go, Anthony Lanier and DeMarcus Christmas. So again, how good can McManus and Judge be if those guys can't pressure the passer and keep those guys off in the running game?
The point you make about the fact that Corey Mace let those 2 guys go, it tells me one of 2 things. Either Sask is absolutely loaded on defensive line, or the Argos might be in trouble with their front. You make a great point. There's a reason why they're not in Sask anymore. I look at this team, I think they can overcome this thing, these departures, because of their quarterback play, one. And secondly, if you look at this league, if this was offensive linemen that were gone, I would say no chance. But historically, the CFL, talent in the defensive front, they've been able to find and plug. One thing to look at, you look at positions. Metier, Deshaun Amos, both gone. Also bringing in Cam Judge. Those 3 guys all play positions where shifts and movements and motions they're highly involved in, which makes a big difference to the communication of your defense. That will also be something that can impact them early.
I mean, totally correct. You are obviously happy that you're keeping Wynton McManus in the locker room. This is a guy that you definitely want to have in the locker room, but you got Cam Judge alongside of him, but you lose everybody in front of him, and you lose a lot of guys behind him. It's going to be devastating. It's going to be extremely challenging for them to overcome this. And you got to look at this team. When you talk about this team, you talk about the quarterback play last year. They did really well, but a lot of this team, a lot of this last season, they were defensive-led. This is why they were able to overcome Chad Kelly not being a starter, even as well as Nick Arbuckle coming into the Grey Cup and playing well, because this defense was really great, was really dominant all season long. We'll see what happens this year.
Well, from defense to offense, and the biggest news from the Argonauts over the past week was releasing running back Kadeem Carey, as we join our Dave Naylor, who is by far the hardest working man in the CFL right now. And Dave, look, this isn't something we aren't expecting when it comes to older running backs, but you got to think Kadeem is still one of the best running backs in the league right now.
Yeah, he really had a bounce-back season last year after some injury-plagued years in Calgary. Had 1,000 yards in 2024. But here's the other number that made Kadeem Carey vulnerable. 32. When running backs are on the other side of 30, teams are always looking for younger players to replace them with. And they had a young player in camp this year, Mayan Williams, 23 years old. This is a guy who in his junior year at Ohio State rushed for 825 yards and scored 14 touchdowns. He suffered a knee injury midway through his senior season. Look, when you hear about a 5'9" running back in the CFL, sometimes you think about a scat back, a guy who's going to bounce it outside, be light on his feet. This guy at 226 pounds is a load. He is low to the ground and will be tough to tackle one-on-one. They're going to pair him with Deontay McMahon, who we used to call Deontay McMahon, but definite changing of the guard in the Toronto Argonauts, but certainly a rookie player we'll be keeping eyes on in Mayan Williams early this season.
So the Argonauts will look to do something that they've done 3 times in their history of the Grey Cup, win back-to-back championships. The last time they accomplished this feat was back in 1996 and 1997, led by back-to-back Grey Cup MVP Doug Flutie. If the Boatmen pull it off this season, it would be their 3rd Grey Cup in the last 4 years. All of us here at the CFL on TSN were devastated to hear the news that Chase Stiegel, the beloved oldest son of Milton Darlene, passed away this week. Chase was a D1 soccer standout at DePaul, but more importantly, an incredible human being. There are no words for this. It is beyond heartbreaking and incredibly difficult to comprehend. As much as we want to be excited about the new season, it's hard not to think about the Stiegels right now. We love you, Milt, and we are dedicating the 2025 season to Chase. The votes are officially in. Our experts have put together our top 50 player list for 2025. And a lot of firsts this year. Brady Oliveira is the first running back and Canadian to be named top player, but 9 players received first place votes. That's the most ever. 4 Canadian players in the top 10, which is a record. Now with one burning question on Winnipeg, here is Farhan Lalji.
Are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers still the dynasty team they have been for the last 5 years? Well, many around the league for the last 2 seasons have expected the Bombers to take a step back, but they never do. Eventually, they always find themselves atop the West Division. They host the West Final and have been to the Grey Cup in 5 straight years. But this year could be different.
We've spent 3 years now talking about the D word in dynasty, and I guess the debate will go on.
Might be a little early to think that way. We're always of the mindset that whatever it's going to take, and we pivot.
Starting with the departure of 3 key receivers, Kenny Lawler, Drew Wolotarski, and Ontario Wilson. Now, Lawler has certainly missed plenty of action in each of the last 2 seasons, but when he is in the lineup, offensively, Winnipeg is a different team. As for Wolotarski, he knows every position in that offense, and last year when he was asked to do more and take on a different role, he absolutely delivered, and he's also one of Caleros' favorite. Now, Kyle Walters has done plenty to fill those voids. He's brought in names like Reggie White Jr., Dylan Mitchell, and Jareth Stearns, and the man responsible for taking all of those ingredients and making a very good meal is offensive coordinator Jason Hogan, who has never called plays before at this level. Defensively, meanwhile, will Willie Jefferson ever slow down?
Look out, and he's taken back down. It's your old friend, Willie Jefferson. Didn't even see him coming.
Sure, he finished with his lowest sack total a year ago since 2016, but he still managed to be named a CFL All-Star. Now, the club did part with some significant veteran players in Adam Bighill and Brandon Alexander. Now, both have missed plenty of time with injuries in the last couple of seasons, but they are definitely Mike O'Shea type of guys, meaning the club is going to need to find a way to fill that leadership void. Also, Terrell Ford, a budding star in the secondary, is on his way to Edmonton to play with his brother.
Zach Caleros' record as a Bomber speaks for itself, and the Bombers have faith that he has lots left, signing to a 1-year contract extension through 2026. Caleros is entering his 6th season with the Bombers with the outstanding record of 49-15. I feel like we have the same conversation each and every year in the CFL. Are the Bombers too old? Are they finally done? And every year they prove us wrong. Jim, I'm going to ask the question once again, though. Are they done? And the question says right here, will the Bombers make the postseason? I mean, they're hosting the Grey Cup.
Well, again, I think that's a bit crazy to not even make the playoffs. Will they win the division? I think there's some questions there. They lost a lot of key people. But they get back Dalton Schoen this year. They still have Zach Caleros. They've still got Stanley Bryant. They've got enough around of veteran players. They got Willie Jefferson on defense. Losing Brandon Alexander's huge for them. So they're going to have to overcome that. I think they definitely make the playoffs. Again, are they going to win the division? It's a tougher one.
I mean, Coach, look, I also was debating if they were even going to make the playoffs, but the more you look at this team, it's just hard to bet against them to at least make the playoffs. They got guys like a Brady Oliveira, who is extremely consistent, doesn't seem like he's slowing down. And Willie Jefferson, we saw what he did in the Grey Cup even last year. So it's hard to go against them, but this is a lot to overcome this year. They lost Kenny Lawler. That he's their #1 guy. When you come in as a defense, that's the number one person you pay attention to, and he's not there anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see what this Buck Pearson-list offense is going to do.
He's the number one guy you pay attention to coming into for a defense. I agree, but somehow he's not in the top 10 in our top 50. So that expert list you talk about, KB, I'd like to know who these experts are.
Talk to Dave Naylor. I have nothing to do with this.
Anyway, look, I can tell you which team won't make the playoffs in the West, and it's quite obvious. It's the team that loses their starting quarterback. That's really the only team that, if you look across the board, that's the only team. Whoever gets injuries will probably not make the playoffs. That's the drop-off between starter to backup. Now, when I look at this team, I look at the 2 wide receivers being gone. Pokey Wilson's in the NFL, and, of course, Kenny Lawler being gone. This team has been able to run off the back of their offensive line, off of their running game with Brady, and that's why Zach has had success in this offense with all those pieces. All of a sudden, you don't have those weapons. Anything happens to one of those 2 guys, Zach or Brady, and then you don't have your explosive weapons, I think you're in trouble. But I'm not betting against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They'll absolutely make the playoffs.
I'm with you. As long as Zach and Brady are there, I think you have to put them right in the mix. Meanwhile, you guys spoke about Kenny Lawler, but he is the new star with Bo Levi Mitchell in Hamilton. 256 receptions, 4,108 yards in his CFL career, and 25 touchdowns as well. And look, we look at a guy like Kenny Lawler, and Bo, he went right to him, Ches, in that preseason game. We saw that these two want a connection instantaneously. You could argue that Lawler is the most gifted offensive player in the CFL. Is he enough with Bo, though, to push Hamilton over the edge?
He is. And we both said it. When we saw that first play of the preseason and a deep shot to Lawler, that is a statement. That is a statement from Scott Milanovich, from Bo Levi Mitchell, and Kenny Lawler that here's our new toy. We're gonna use him. We're gonna make you guard him, and that's really what's gonna shift this offense. And I was talking to Scott a couple of weeks ago during the preseason, and Scott told me it changes the game to have a true X receiver out there. And what he was talking about was the numbers game. The fact that when you have to double team the X receiver, which maybe they have not had a true X in the past few years, it changes a 3-on-2, 2-on-1 game on the other side, or a 3-on-2, 4-on-3 on the other side of the field. He loves that. They can't double team 2 guys. Kenny Lawler's a difference maker.
Well, Bo Levi's got to get a connection with Tim White for this offense to get going. He's got to figure that one out, because they just didn't have it in preseason either in terms of that connection, because Tim White was getting open because of some of the stuff that will go with Lawler. But where I think they've improved the most, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, is on defense. In the draft, they drafted 2 players, their first 2 draft picks, Devin Verasuk and Bagna. Isaiah Bagna, who's a defensive end, those 2 guys are going to contribute greatly to this team, going to help them with the ratio. I just think that their defense is going to be much of. They add Reggie Stubblefield. They bring Deshaun Amos over, so now they got Peters on one side, Deshaun Amos on the other. I think they're a much more solid football team now all the way around.
Jury's definitely still out on the defense. We definitely want to see. I think there's some great names, great additions. Stubblefield brings a lot of physicality to that defense. I agree with you, Jim. There's a great possibilities, and they look really good on defense. If they perform well, that offense is going to be extremely difficult to defend. When you talk about Kenny Lawler, Tim White, and you add as well Greg Bell, who I think is going to be a difference maker for this team, it is going to be difficult.
Well, that might be the best receiving core in the CFL, but I know one team that would argue that, and that would be, of course, the Ottawa Red Blacks, who added the one and only Gino Lewis to their roster. Gino set to make his debut for Ottawa in Regina on Thursday night. I got to sit down with the receiver. It's coming up right after this. Well, it all begins on Thursday night. We will be on the road in Regina for the opener as the Rough Riders welcome the Red Blacks to Mosaic. And then we're going to be on the road Friday night as the Alouettes welcome the Argonauts. It wraps up with a doubleheader on Saturday. It's an all-Canadian matchup, by the way. You got Edmonton, you got BC. Should be a phenomenal first week of football. months, we have watched Eugene Lewis make highlight reel grabs as his talent and swagger speaks for itself. After an unceremonious exit from Edmonton this past offseason that made headlines all across the league, Red-Black fans are thrilled to have the receiver in the nation's capital, hoping their newest star is ready to take Ottawa's offense to the next level. Recently, I got to sit down with Gino to talk about his departure from Edmonton, his new home, and a misunderstanding that I take full responsibility for.
Flea flicker towards the end zone. Gino Lewis comes back to get it. Makes a man miss. Touchdown, Edmonton.
I would like to apologize for something formally.
Okay.
We made up an award last year.
You're right. I heard about this.
It was myself personally,
okay,
and one Bo Levi Mitchell.
Okay.
And you won, but after consideration, we thought it'd be funny if Bo came up, not knowing that, you know, he didn't win, and we said your name. But then something in translation was lost.
I didn't win. Is there a backup award?
And I feel like I owe you an apology because I would have voted you comeback player of the year.
That's okay.
Are we good on this?
We're great.
Yes.
No, you know, my thing was I had people calling me and texting me, like 10, 15 people. They're like, wait, you won? I said, I don't know what y'all are talking about. I have no idea. So, but yeah.
We've decided that we acted it too well.
Yes, it was too good.
It was.
It was too good. Y'all did too good.
Nobody got the joke. So let's talk about what went down here. So obviously you're no longer with Edmonton.
Yes.
And I mean, it was huge in the media and we can't ignore it. Yep. The fact that I think it was bad blood between you and Ed Hervey of what went down and that you hadn't spoken to him. And he said the same. The superstar comment came out.
Can you give us some insight into the thought process of not wanting him in Edmonton?
I don't know any superstar players in the CFL.
Where is this currently?
I mean, currently, personally, I'm getting ready for the season. You know, that stuff is what it is. And like I said before, it's kind of like, I'm not going to argue with somebody I never, you know, talked to before. But it's not even about, I don't care about if you don't want me on the team. I don't really care if you don't think I'm part of the plans. It's just about the principles and just letting people know. Like, just have a conversation with me because I am a certain type of player in this league. Whether it's a superstar, a star, an all-star, I'm some type of star in this league, however you want to put it.
When you think about of your time in Edmonton, how would you define your time there?
There was ups and downs, obviously. You know, the hardest part is the losing. That losing part is just tough for any player, any coaches, any staff, any upstairs. Like, that's the hardest part because you can't justify it. You know, I think scoring a 102-yard touchdown in the first game that you played on the team is very, very hard to do, and it's very great. I think I did a lot of things individually, but, you know, winning the Grey Cup is always the goal. That's always the number one. But one thing I can say is that there was times where we did come together as a team, and we did get on some hot streaks, and the young guys did learn, and we learned as vets how to be, you know, better leaders and stuff like that. So I just feel as though we helped put it on the right path to, you know, for the future. And that's the best thing that I possibly could do, you know, after it was all said and done.
Why Ottawa?
Ottawa. For one, you know, I had great conversations with Sean Berkey. I had a great conversation with Coach Dice. And they make you feel like you're somebody. They make you feel like you're an important piece. They make you feel like we have something good going, but we know how you could add to this. We know we've been seeing you play for all these years. You've been killing us, and, you know, it's just better to have you on our team now than being against you. And I just always love the city. It's the closest city to, you know, so my mom and my family can come and see me, like, for the first time. And that was another big part. I went into this offseason, it wasn't all about money. Yes, I want to be highest paid again or not being highest paid again. It was about being in the right position, in the right circumstances, and where I was going to be happy, and somewhere where I can play football and not have to worry about looking behind my shoulders. Do they want to take pay cuts from me? Am I going to get cut? And all this type of thing. So I give a lot of credit because it's super, super hard to become the highest paid non-quarterback and not have to take a pay cut, and not each year, and not have to, you know, degrade yourself or have a season where they tell you, listen, you got to help us out a little bit. I did everything that I possibly could individually, and, you know, I'm just glad I was able to, you know, do the things I can for that city of Edmonton. I think the fans, they're beautiful fans, man, and, you know, now I just can't wait to, you know, go against them.
Can we do one thing before the season starts?
Let's do it.
Ready?
Yep.
1, 2.
See, you already know. You the best.
Gotcha. I got you.
at you, okay?
I mean, we have handshakes on the panel as well. But that took 7 takes, but no, I'm kidding. It absolutely didn't. So Gino leading the way with most active receiving yards at 6,261. Also, if he catches a touchdown in the first 2 games of the season, he will tie the CFL record for consecutive games with a TD grab at 10. So now we talk about the Ottawa Red Blacks offense, and they needed help in the red zone, particularly after last season. Davis, I have to ask you the question. Do they have the potential
do you have to ask me the question?
I've been told by at least 3 people that I have to ask this question. Do they have the potential to be one of the dangerous offenses in the CFL?
The most dangerous, absolutely not. The most dangerous in the East, not.
No.
Will they be better? Yes. I think they'll be better. To Gino Lewis's point, he may not be a superstar, but he is a star. And on this panel, there's only one superstar, and that is our good friend Milton Stiegel. Milton, we love you and we miss you. Looking at this team and looking at this Red Blacks team, I think they're going to be better on defense. I look at this defensive lineup and I see Will Fields come in, who me and Jim were with in Calgary. Jim, you coached him and brought him, signed him there. He's an extremely smart defensive mind. If he's not the smartest when it comes to secondary in this league, he's right there. Only Alonzo Adai returns in that secondary as a starter. 4 new pieces. I think they'll be much better. And I think Drew Brown will be better. I just think you're going against Montreal's got everybody back. Hamilton, we know what they're going to do. So I don't put them at the top of the East, but they will be better.
You got to look at Drew Brown. I think that's where everything starts and ends with this team. And I think he's going to take a step forward. Starting last year as a first-time starter, he did an amazing job. And I think he's going to take that next step as well. Having, obviously, Gino Lewis is going to help tremendously. And don't forget, they also have Dedmon, who's always going to be a dangerous piece. Whenever he steps on the field, he can always change a game. And so Gino Lewis is gonna help Drew Brown tremendously, especially if he continues that streak of touchdowns. So this team is gonna be one to watch for sure. I don't know if they're the best and most explosive receiving core, but they're gonna be better than last year.
Well, the receiving core, they don't have that real explosive. Pimpleton can go. He's got one guy who can really go. But, you know, Braylon Addison and Justin Hardy and Keelan White will be starting their first-round draft pick, who I thought was the most pro-ready guy in the draft. He'll be starting for them. Those are real good route runners and great hands and those kinds of things. But outside of Pimpleton, they really don't have that game breaker. They bring William Stan back in, and they didn't really address the offensive line, and that's my biggest concern. Drew Brown starts with 8 wins, but then they fizzle down because their offensive line couldn't hold up. So they've got the same people playing on the offensive line, and again, if they can get better, they brought in Peter Godber, but he's been hurt, so he hasn't been in. If they can get better, maybe their team can, but if they can't, they're going to struggle again.
Will they run the ball is the question,
too. They will. Stand back. Of course they're going to run the ball.
Let's hope so.
You're right. I'm concerned about the O-line. But I also think there's a lot of bulletin board material here for the Ottawa Red Blacks. I really do. So go ahead and use it.
I believe in you, Ottawa.
All right, don't go anywhere. We go from east to west as we look into the BC Lions right after this.
We've been patiently waiting here in Vancouver.
Vernon Adams slow to get up.
Not good for the BC Lions.
Huge news. Nathan Rourke is returning to the BC Lions.
Look at this. Down the field, has a man. Touchdown, Eberhardt.
Nathan Rourke, you're going to take a seat. We're going to bring back Vernon Adams Jr.
Heaves one down the field to the end zone. Intercepted to seal the fate of the BC Lions.
The big question fans, not just in BC, but across the CFL have is, can Nathan Rourke return to his 2022 form?
Rourke doesn't care. Down the left sideline, showing off the speed. Will he score? He will.
Looks down the field. He's got a man. How about that? Rourke strikes.
Well, he certainly put in the work this offseason, but not just physically, also in areas such as leadership and in becoming the face of the franchise. You can absolutely see the growth there. There wasn't necessarily complete buy-in last August when Rourke returned to the CFL. The locker room quickly became divided. That is absolutely going to change this season. But it's also important to remember when comparing him to 2022, just how much better that group of offensive skill positions were than what they currently are now. Right now, you've got Justin McInnis, who was last year's CFL's leading receiver. They'll look to build on him. Keon Hatcher will be fully healthy. That will certainly help. And you've also got an established veteran in Javon Catoy that the club could certainly take more advantage of. But after that, there's a number of young receivers that are going to have to grow up in a hurry.
Obviously, the offense is going to be a little bit different. We're just going to rely on what we know we can do. We got a bunch of playmakers that can do that big play ability. So I'm expecting us to be able to do that again.
The club will be better along the offensive line after acquiring Dejon Allen in a trade from Toronto, but there are some concerns along the interior.
The guys are flying around and day one jitters out there for sure, and I'm sure it's certainly guilty more than anyone. But we'll clean those stuff up and we'll continue to build on here, and I think we're at a good place right now.
The Buck Pierce effect on Rourke should also be interesting. There will be much more downhill running, more misdirection, more play action, and more horizontal stretch in the offense, and we'll see if all of that can get Rourke closer to his historic level of production from 2022, again here in 2025.
So you have Nathan Rourke there from the start of training camp. You have Buck Pierce now inserted into this team. Obviously, there is some concern with the O-line as well, Jim. Is there enough, though, for the BC Lions to make it to the Grey Cup in Winnipeg?
Well, they went out and got Buck Pierce for one reason, and it's not because he's won Grey Cups. It's because he's going to bring them a physical, tough mentality. It's what they haven't had for the last few years. So he moves Mike Benavides over to be the defensive coordinator, and he's going to try to bring a more physical mentality. James Butler is going to come in as the running back. And again, when you have Nathan Rourke, you have a guy who has the potential to be as good a quarterback as there is in this league. They've got to find the right mixture to make that happen. So they certainly could be great. I think they got a lot of holes. They signed Dwayne Hendricks on the defensive line. I think their offensive line, they've already lost Una and Foucault last week with a very bad season-ending injury. So I don't know, Davis. I just don't know if they have enough inside to be able to do it.
Yeah, when I watched Nathan in the second half of the season, even VA when he was out there, I don't care who was playing quarterback, really. They could have brought Doug Flutie back and wouldn't have had a shot. So they had to address the offensive line. I think getting Allen's gonna help them. I don't know if it's gonna be enough. A key to this offense, I would think it's gonna be the health of Keon Hatcher, because McKinnis is gonna do his thing. You got to have two go-to guarantees. If Hatcher's healthy, he's that guy. But I hope he's healthy.
Yeah, I think what Buck Pierce also brings with that physicality that you're talking about and toughness, Coach, is the fact that the misdirections, and you talk about a defense coming in to play an offense now in BC, you're coming in and you're wondering, what are they going to do? How are they going to attack us? And Buck Pierce in the past, as well as Paul Lapalisse prior to him, and when they were doing this in Winnipeg, it was always challenging. You're coming to play against Zach Collaros and Brady Oliveira. You're wondering what is going to be the game plan, and they always do different things that challenge a lot of defenses. That is going to be one thing that is going to be interesting to look at when you look at Nathan Rourke in that Buck Pierce offense.
And how dare you, Davis Sanchez? If Doug Flutie started for any team in the CFL right now, they would win the Grey Cup. To this day, right now, break out the Flutie flakes. It's thank you very much,
Was he in the top 50?
He was. You know what? I'm putting him in the top 50. Let's go from west to east now in the Montreal Alouettes.
It's a celebration 13 years in the making. Percival Molson Stadium is packed.
Cody Fajardo went down in the first quarter with a hamstring injury.
Davis Alexander under center for the Alouettes. Stays on his feet along the sideline to the end zone. Alexander does it himself.
Look at those defending champs go.
And contact made, and interference is going to be called against Tyrese Beverett.
Feels like a nightmare, honestly. It's very hard, obviously, to accept it, but you have to accept it and move on.
To say there have been a few QBs in Montreal since Anthony Calvillo is an understatement. Cody Fajardo did win it all, but the team has not had a franchise QB since Calvillo. Davis Alexander now takes the reins. He posted a 5-0 record while starting at QB while Fajardo was injured. We are now joined by our Paul Lapalisse in Lapo. The burning question in Montreal is Davis Alexander the guy? Is he the next franchise quarterback for the Montreal Alouettes?
I absolutely liked a lot of the things he did last season, Kate. 70% completion percentage, 1,350 yards, 6 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, throwing 166 yards rushing. The guy was 5-0 in games he played, 4 starts and replacement in Saskatchewan. Let's go to that game. As you see this, what does he do? He likes to create with his legs. This is the first series of the second half. And what does he do? He makes C.J. Revis miss, makes a huge throw on the inside to Tyson Philpott, led to a touchdown drive and really sparked this offense. I like his processing skills. He's got the ability to see pictures. And what is this picture? Sass says, hey, let's blitz the young quarterback. He recognized it immediately, throws it out to Tyson Philpott. So he beat the blitz. Go to the next week versus the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He recognizes zone. This is the weakness in the third of the field in the zone. He has a seam ball there, throws it between the corner and the free safety for the touchdown. So I love all these type of pictures you can see. And there's one more opportunity. Man coverage across the board. He sees man coverage. Quarterbacks also have to locate the football. What's he do? He hits Charleston Rambo for this touchdown. So there's a lot of good pictures when you watch this young player on tape. He has been in the system for 2 seasons. Jason Moss said in the offseason, I've got plenty of time to be able to. We put the entire offense in. We got our skill players back. But I think what's going to help him the most, Kate, is this defense, second best in the Canadian Football League. He doesn't have to score a lot of points. They only give up 21 points a game. They don't give up explosive plays. So, he's going to make his plays, but he's also got a great defense around him.
And you got to think having MBT behind him, too, and learning from McLeod will be a benefit. So we will see what happens in Montreal, but high hopes for Davis Alexander. All right, coming up on the show, we chat the Alberta QBs as a new era is set to take shape in Calgary with VA and fresh off a 3-year contract extension that solidifies him as the quarterback from years to come. Will Trey Ford live up to the expectations?
Stampeders will move to 4-0 at home. From 2nd and 10 at the 43-yard line to the 2. Reggie Begelton refuses to be tackled.
Haven't won on the road yet now, 0 for 8. The Stamps have never gone a season without winning a game on the road.
Challenging when you haven't won a game on the road, and it's in your head a little bit.
Mayer throwing over the middle, intercepted.
Dave Dickinson has never missed the playoffs.
It will be changed, hopefully to a great 2025.
And there certainly was change in 2025 at the biggest position of quarterback. Vernon Adams Jr., their new starter, and it's certainly brought an excitement and a life right now to Calgary. But the biggest question is here, Enoch, is it enough?
It's a great question. I mean, VA's had a great place in his career where, he just changed teams and he's now re-energized and he has a chip on his shoulder. He's a leader. He brings a different dimension to this offense. Obviously, being a dual threat, he's a great leader as well. He's going to have lots of fun with Dom Rhymes, as well as Begelton, and Philpott is going to chime in as well. I'm looking at this defense. What is going to happen with this defense, guys? You look at the departure of Mike Rose, who was one of the few bright spots on that defense. He's gone. You obviously add Floro Milade, who we know what he can do, but is he going to be enough? Because all you got to do is now double team him. You got Miles Brown in the middle, but who else can step up from that defense to be impactful enough to allow Vernon Adams to also have an impact?
Yeah, I look at when you look at that board and the arrivals, I don't know if they added enough. And, to be fair to this organization and to what they did in the offseason, I don't know some of the guys that are on this roster. Some of the guys that make this roster I don't have any history with. So maybe there are some guys we don't know. When I look at this roster and the arrivals and versus departures, from what I saw with their talent level last year to what I saw in the arrivals, I don't know if they have enough. Now, do I doubt or do I believe in VA and his talent? Absolutely. I don't care. We hear about this, and you mentioned it, the chip on the shoulder and what he has to prove. I could care less about that because that's not going to help him. You don't need any more motivation. A chip on the shoulder might help you when you're playing for nothing at the end of a season or some other situation. When you're playing, when you've been handed the keys after all he's been through with Nathan and BC, to play with a chip on his shoulder, he's got enough pressure on him. He should just play within himself. I don't know if he has enough weapons. I hope he does. And knowing Dave and the folks over there, they're smart football people. They've probably added some pieces. We'll learn about them hopefully early in the year.
Yeah, well, with Dedrick Mills and that offensive line, that's a good starting point because they always have different players in there, but they always play great. Their offensive line seems to always play great. So, they'll have Reggie Begelton, who will be that go-to guy that they can go to. What about Malik Henry? Is he going to be able to return with his speed and give VA that guy? I think VA has a chance to really fit in well there. Watching him him in the preseason. He just seemed confident and comfortable. If he can play well, again, I agree with you, Enoch. I think there's big questions on defense. I think Fraser Sopik retiring hurt him badly, but again, if they can play decent on defense, they got a chance to improve themselves a lot.
And here's the good news. History is officially on their side. As we know, that was the first time in a long time that Calgary hadn't made the postseason, 2004 to be exact. But then in 2005, it started turning around. They had an 11-7 record. They were second in the West. They did lose the West semifinal against Edmonton, but they had a pretty decent starting quarterback at that point, too. You might know him. His name was Henry Burris. Smiling Hank. Let's stick in Alberta now and stick with the quarterback theme, and it has to be Trey Ford when it comes to Edmonton. And JB, look, they have now given the reins to Trey. They gave him that contract extension, so there's confidence there, and I think that says a lot when it comes to the situation he's been in for the last few years. Is he the guy, though? Is he a franchise quarterback? We know he's uber athletic, but does he have enough?
Nobody knows, and nobody's going to know. We all thought Dane Evans had it when he stepped in Hamilton. Until you're the guy and you have the Elks organization on your shoulders, you don't know how he's going to react. Anybody who says they do, they don't, because we don't know. But he has great athleticism. We've seen that. He's got a couple experienced receivers in Curly Gittins. They get Keon Julian Grant from Montreal, but they're also going to have a lot of young guys. They've cut Alexander Hollins. Yeah. They're going to be a very young receiving core. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch Trey as he develops. And their offensive line, I think they've addressed it. I think it's much better than it was. They need to give him some help.
Yeah. When Ed Hervey took over for that group that was there at the end of last year, one of the first things that Ed said, and it was the other group might not have felt this way, is Trey's our guy. They signed him to a new contract. It was kind of like, hey, they did not do this. The prior group didn't do it, so believe in him. We believe in him. So whether or not Trey can be the guy or will be the guy, I don't think they have a choice. He better be the guy because they've invested in him. So let's see how this all plays out. They've done a great job in the offseason of adding pieces, which Edmonton has been known to do. So I feel good about this team, and I feel good about the offseason moves. But it's all Trey. Anyone that thinks he has a leash or there's someone looking over his shoulder, not with how this new regime at top has come in. They've said it's his car, his keys, and here they go.
Absolutely. You talk about what they did over there in the offseason. I think there's a lot of changes that happened. Obviously, players left, players came. But the fact that he was proclaimed the guy, I think, is going to have a huge impact for this team, and it'll be interesting to see. And I love their defense as well. We talked about, Jim, the linebackers out in Toronto. But these two young linebackers over here, Niles Morgan and Nick Anderson, I can't wait to watch these guys play. They have so much energy. They're so dynamic, and they hit.
They fly. Yeah.
Some old school football.
Just
all right.
old school.
You know what? I know that Rider fans right now are probably watching this show and be like, come on. Are you going to talk about? Yes, but maybe we should save the best for last. And don't get mad at me, Bombers fans. You know what I mean when I'm saying that. Coming up after the break, we talk all things Saskatchewan Roughriders and how far we can think they go this season. Once again, joined by our Dave Naylor. And Dave, a hot topic in football right now is the Olympics and flag football. And the NFL announcing that they would allow their players to go and compete in Los Angeles. The difference is the NFL is not on when the CFL is on. And if the CFL does grant permission, it's going to mean a bunch of these star players are going to leave for the games. What is the latest when it comes to the CFL and their players?
Well, the CFL's new commissioner, Stuart Johnston, has committed that he wants to make CFL players available for the Olympics in 2028. And I think there are conversations going on now between Football Canada and the CFL trying to come to some sort of agreement about how that would work. But it also could involve, the CFL supporting Canada's efforts towards the Olympics, which involve they must qualify for the Olympics right now as well. Only 6 teams are going, but it's a tough thing to anticipate because, of course, it's a number of years away. The tournament is less than 1 week. There's only 10 players on the team. Team Canada will be picking potentially from NFL players as well, so we don't know how many CFL players will be going. So fluid situation, but we could see global players going from the CFL to participate as well, not just Canadians as well. But certainly, I think the league understands this is a unique opportunity. They want to do everything they can to support this and make players available.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. It'd be great to see the players down there, but you certainly don't want to sacrifice your team in season. We'll see what they decide. Meantime, as promised, we now break down the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
In Saskatchewan for another year, the Canadian Football League. An awful sight to see. A limping Trevor Harris hit and goes back down again. My goodness.
Down the field, intercepted. Who else? The defensive player of the year. Oh, Roland Milligan has done it again.
Regina sets the stage for the West semifinal.
Breaks a tackle. Can he go to the 10-5? Touchdown.
Riders are heading to Winnipeg.
Let the guys down, and guys saying they were sorry they let everybody down. And I see this organization taking a giant leap.
You really have to like continuity in the CFL, and that is certainly the word for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They held on to all their all-stars. There are not a ton of changes when it comes to this team. And Ches, I completely understand why you keep picking this team to go to the Grey Cup.
I mean, Trevor Harris, it really starts with Trevor Harris. And when he was playing, he's as efficient, and this is as efficient as an offense is, you'll see. Trevor Harris is getting the ball out. He's dealing. He's 39 years old. So, yes, he has questions. But when you're looking at pre-snap and a guy who's reading the defense, getting the ball out, and they have playmakers on offense. You look at across the board, their weapons at receiver, they're up there with anyone else you put up there. I believe in this team. I think that because of who they return and because of the quarterback play, I really like the ride. I think it's quiet because they don't have as many of the star players, but I think when you look top to bottom, depth and talent with the quarterback play, I like the Riders a lot.
They have continuity. They're going to need consistency as well. Trevor Harris is going to have to remain healthy for them to go far as well. You look at another guy, AJ Ouellette. We often talk about him. He's transformed himself. He's lost weight. And is he still going to be the same Thor is going to be the question. He's going to have to adjust his game. And I like what the Riders did bringing in Andrew Harris as the running backs coach. Now, hopefully he can pick up on some of the stuff that Andrew was doing while he was playing, which was be patient, have great balance, and make some business decisions when you play against these guys.
Well, two things. Number one, Trevor Harris, he a great player. Want to see him stay healthy. But they brought Jake Mayer in, and I think Jake Mayer, now as the backup quarterback, is going to be that guy next year everybody wants. I picked Saskatchewan 2 weeks ago to be the team that was going to win the Grey Cup. Since then, they've lost Sean McEwen, they're one of their most important free agent acquisitions, and Philippe Gagnon, both offensive linemen. Now that's a huge gap to fill. I don't know many teams that can lose two top-quality Canadian offensive linemen and still be able to hold up through the season.
It was one of the worst things, just watching injuries in preseason. I'm with you on that one, some brutal injuries, but we'll see if Sask can pull through. All right, gentlemen, get ready, because fan bases are either going to love you or hate you after this. It is our Grey Cup predictions coming up next. As promised, it is that time for the panel picks. Enoch Mwamba, who is winning the Grey Cup?
Kate, I can see Saskatchewan and Montreal in the Grey Cup, and Saskatchewan is actually going to take it. How's this for bias? Defense wins championship. I like the Saskatchewan defense in this game.
Maybe the most explosive offense at the end of the year last year was the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Now you add Kenny Lawler, you add pieces on defense. I'm going with the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Well, you guys read my notes.
No,
Grey Cup going to be Saskatchewan against Hamilton. I'm going to take Saskatchewan, even though they lost those two linemen. And because you're right, Enoch, defense wins, and they're going to play the Hamilton Tiger Cats because that offense is going to be exciting, Davis.
I like it.
So I love your picks, but don't cheat off of me. The winner's going to be
no one cheated off
the Hamilton Tiger Cats, first time since 1999.
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. I mean, we've only got 15 seconds left in the show, and, you know, I've been doing my research, and
Are you serious?
I just really love CFL football, and I hope all the teams have fun.
Unbelievable.